Someone you know or loved has died, and it doesn't make sense. There was no warning, no time to prepare, no script to say anything or how you feel. One moment they were there, and the next moment they were gone. I'm a licensed therapist and an ordained minister, and I've been at the bedside of over 1,300 people as a chaplain. And I want to talk for a moment about what happens inside us when death is sudden to our bodies, to our faith, and to the anger that nobody gives us permission to feel. When death happens suddenly, the first thing that shows up is not grief, it's usually shock. And shock is not emotion, it's a neurological event. Our nervous systems receive information that it can't process. Our brains literally can't compute what just happened. So it does the only thing it knows how to do. It shuts down the parts of us that feel and activates the parts that function. We go into autopilot. We make phone calls. We make funeral arrangements. We answer questions. People look at us and say, you are just so strong. What they're actually seeing is a body that hasn't had time to process or has turned off the pain so that they can survive the next 48, 72 hours, so they can take care of whatever family business needs to be taken care of after the loss or the passing of a loved one. I like to say that's not strength, it's more so survival. The challenge with survival mode is that it feels like coping. We often think we're handling it and it's okay. The pastor may think we're handling it. Our friends may think we're handling it. Our family may think we're handling it. But we haven't had the time or the ability to process anything. And so we're postponing everything, but we have to understand that our body is still keeping a tab. Days later, weeks, months, maybe even years, the shock wears off and the weight arrives. Not gradually or all at once, but in a moment, oftentimes when we don't expect it. And so we end up standing in the middle of our regular life. Maybe we're at the grocery store, in the car, at our desk, and the grief hits us so hard that we can't breathe. And then we think something's wrong because everyone else has moved on. Here's what I'd like to say: nothing is wrong with you. You're not too late to handle your grief, because I like to say grief knows no timeline. Our bodies, especially if we were the strong one or the ones taking care of business, were protecting us. And what our bodies are letting us know in those moments is that it's time to feel what it wouldn't let us feel. It's time to feel the loss. It's time to feel the pain. It's time to mourn. Let me talk about something else that often shows up after the shock of a sudden death that no one prepares us for: anger. The kind that makes you want to throw something. The kind that makes you want to cuss somebody out. The kind that comes out as questions aimed directly at God. Why? Why did you take my loved one? Why now? Why like this? Why didn't you let me know? Do you really care? Anger that comes out as questions. The challenge is that sometimes the church or our spiritual communities will spiritualize it away. You've heard the statements, well, God had a plan for them. They're in a better place. God needs another angel. Well-intentioned statements. It often tells a grieving person, though, that anger is inappropriate, where anger is actually a response to grief. It often tells a person that, hey, God's got this, you just need to accept it. If you're angry at God, something's wrong with your faith. I like to say being angry at God is actually a sign of faith. That means you're able to go to God with your hurt and with your pain. Here's some interesting things if we look at scripture. Job lost everything, his children, his health, and his livelihood, all in a single day. And he screamed at the heavens. Job didn't say God had a plan. Job actually said, "Cursed be the day I was born." And God didn't punish him for it. God showed up. David wrote Psalms of lament that would get us escorted out of most church services. How long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? That's not a praise song. That's a protest. And it's in the Bible because protest is part of a relationship with God and not a threat to it. I like to say God is big enough to handle our anger, our protest, and our grief. Jesus himself stood at the tomb of Lazarus and wept. He knew he was going to raise Lazarus from the dead, and he knew the story had a happy ending. Yet he still wept. He still grieved. Our anger at death is not a lack of faith. It's a sign that we loved someone dearly and the loss is real. And our soul knows that this is not the way it's supposed to be. Or we like to say, it's not the way that we thought it was supposed to happen. And anyone who tells us to skip that anger is asking us to dishonor the love that produced that anger. Now, the question everybody asks and no one answers honestly: where is God when death is sudden and it makes no sense? I'm going to tell you the truth. I don't know. As a chaplain, I've been at the bedside of many people who died. I've held parents whose children have died. I've sat with families after drive-by shootings and after car accidents, after sudden heart attacks, after cancer and disease. And I've never once been able to explain why. I like to say the honest answer is that some things don't have an explanation this side of eternity. I also like to say the people who tell you they know why, who give us the neat plans, the reasons, and the hidden purpose, are filling the silence with words because the silence can be unbearable. And I understand that impulse. But words, especially if we aren't careful, can be more harmful than the silence that it's trying to fill. God has a plan. It's not always a comfort to the mother who just lost her son or daughter. It's a proposition that makes God feel safe, but doesn't comfort the grieving person. One could say it might protect God's reputation at the expense of the mourner's pain. And that says something more about us because God can handle our mourning, our pain, and our anger. God can handle the questions. God can handle the silence. The question is whether we as a community of faith can. So where is God in shocking death? I believe God is present. I do believe God grieves. But God doesn't always explain. Sometimes God's presence shows up not as answers, but as accompaniment. I'll say I experienced that as a chaplain. I had to go into a children's hospital one time and someone lost their baby. And I had to sit with them. No answers, no prayers, no nothing. We sat in silence for an hour. After that, I went to do my rounds. And as I was coming back late evening in my rounds, that person called me over and they introduced me to their family. They said, "Thank you for just sitting with me." Sometimes the best thing we can do in those moments is just to be present. Just knowing that God is present with us, and just as loved ones being present, oftentimes is the best thing that we can do. I've experienced shocking loss. I'll be honest, I'm dealing with some of that even now. What I can tell you is that seminary education doesn't prepare you for it. Scripture doesn't prepare you for it. Psychological training doesn't prepare you for it. Grief doesn't care about our credentials. Here's the thing. Grief has no schedule. Our culture gives us a short time. Our church may give us a week or two. Our jobs give us 3 days. Friends may give us a month or two. Then everybody expects it to be back to normal. The truth is, we are living in a new normal, the normal without the loved one that we loved and their presence, their earthly presence. Grief shows up when it wants. It can be a song, it can be a smell. In my case, I had a few Facebook posts that showed up. A Tuesday afternoon can show up. We learn to let grief come instead of fighting it. Because fighting grief is another form of max effort, and grief doesn't respond to effort. It just responds to presence. The best thing that anyone did for me when I was in grief was just sit with me and say nothing. Share stories and laugh. I shared my story with someone else earlier, and that was one thing I learned a lot about grief. Just being present. Presence and care. And being a witness. That's what grief needs. Let me speak briefly to the people around a grieving person. Because most people, we just want to help and we don't know how. Stop explaining. They don't need our theology. They don't necessarily even need to know why God allowed this. They just need to know you're there. I'm here for whatever you need at this particular time. And then I would add this. Let them share what they need. They might need your presence. They might need something else. Just being present and saying you care is huge. Don't time grief. Grief shows up when it wants to show up. I remember mourning my mother 10 years later after her death. I'm driving along the expressway, something hits, and boom, I was mourning. Grief has its own timeline. So when I say just be present, you might check on them a month or a couple months. Check on them, especially when everything is stopped, because usually that funeral season is busy and it's packed, but then it slows down. So check on them then. Check on them on the anniversaries. Check on them on the first birthday without the loved one, the first Thanksgiving, the first Christmas. All of those first, because that's when grief often shows up. And then here's a big one. Don't compare losses. I know how you feel is a comforting statement, but the truth is we don't really know how the other person feels. We know how our loss felt to us. Theirs may feel differently. We might feel a tremendous sense of loss at a parent dying, and we come to someone else and they may be like, I'm glad they're gone. We don't know. So we can just say, I've been through loss and I'm here. In other words, use presence. If you're grieving right now, if someone was here and now they're not, and it doesn't make sense, I want you to hear me. Your grief is not a problem to solve. It's love with nowhere to go. The weight of it is the measure of what that person meant to you. Don't rush it. Don't perform recovery for everybody else. And don't let anyone tell you when it should be over. And if you happen to be angry at God, that's fine too. Because God can handle your anger, and that anger means you're still in relationship. I like to say you don't yell at someone you're giving up on. The anger is a bridge and not a wall. Walk across it knowing that God is on the other side. Grief is not a problem to solve. It's a natural response to losing someone or something we love. And love, even love that hurts this much, is still very sacred. Take care of yourself, your mind, your heart, and your spirit. Please feel free to subscribe to the channel for more. Take care. God bless you.